welcome to an episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo. So today I'm joined by a special guest. He's back on the pod. He previously appeared in season 3 with the Death Proof and Planet Terror episodes. So please welcome back Akin.
Hey, how we doing?
Oh, great. It's great to having you back here on the podcast. So this film is a fun one, I would say. We're going to be discussing Brooklyn. So Brooklyn is a 2015 romantic drama film that's based on the 2009 novel of the same name by Colm Toibin. It is directed by John Crowley, is known for directing films such as Boy A and We Live in Time. The screenplay is by Nick Hornby, who's known for writing books such as High Fidelity and About a Boy. The film stars Saoirse Ronan, Emory, Cohen, and Domnhall Gleeson. Here is the synopsis. Young Irish immigrant Eilish Lace, played by Saoirse Ronan, navigates her way through 1950s Brooklyn. Lured by the promise of America, Eilish departs Ireland and the comfort of her mother's home for the shores of New York City. The initial shackles of homesickness quickly diminish as a fresh romance sweeps Eilish into the intoxicating charm of love. But soon her past disrupts her new vivacity, and Eilish must choose between two countries and the lives that exist within. So the film premiered at the Sundance Film Festival back in January 2015, where Searchlight Pictures acquired the rights during a bidding war for $9 million. So the film was released in theaters. It had limited release in November 4th, 2015, which expanded in within the coming weeks. It had a production budget of $11 million. For box office, it made over $62 million worldwide. Domestically, it opened at number 30 with $187,000, $281. It was beaten by films including Spectre, the Peanuts movie, and The Martian. In regards to critical reception, it has a 3.8 rating on Letterboxd. It was nominated for 3 Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actress for Saoirse Ronan, and Adapted Screenplay. At the time of this recording, it is available to stream on CBC Gem, Stars, Crave, Paramount Plus, and Hoopla, and is available on demand, so check your local provider. All right, so we could get into first discovery. So, Akin, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. So this was a movie that I had kind of heard about, um, and I hadn't really sat through the whole thing until recently. I'd seen bits and snippets of it. So when I had first heard about it, it was kind of like a not romantic comedy, but a dramatic romance, right? Obviously, and that was kind of all I really knew about it. I didn't really know too much, but there is one thing, obviously, as the title would suggest, is that it's set in New York City, and it's an old timey kind of New York City, which I can't help but kind of romanticize that kind of setting. I don't know. It's always been kind of nice to kind of see New York City in the past. And that's really all I knew about it, honestly, going into it was that it's dramatic, romantic, and then on top of it takes place in a really cool time period and also very cool setting.
Awesome. So, what were your initial thoughts on the movie?
The movie itself, I don't really have a lot of comments in terms of like any issues with it, and I really it's kind of hard to say because it really is kind of just like an immigration, but more of like a heavy love theme going on over the whole thing, right? When it comes to
Mhm.
romance. And one of our peers actually back in our script writing program there, yeah, she put it. It wasn't about this movie, but it's just the general concept for movies is that kind of idea of freedom versus familiarity, right? Where
Mhm.
it's having to pick between the two and kind of juggle that life. And this is kind of a huge overarching theme going on throughout this movie. So
Mhm.
in terms of like negatives, I don't really have any sort of negatives about it. It's just like your standard kind of story. I don't think there's anything particularly special about it either. But
Mhm.
going on that note, like there are a lot of like I guess, universal themes that some can be very specific to the immigrant story, right? But then some of them are just
Mm-hmm.
kind of more broader things like homesickness and wanting something more and kind of missing what you had before, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
So before the movie came out at the time, like I think I saw the trailer, I was intrigued by it. And then I believe I got like an email from Cineplex because as a Scene Plus member, they were holding an advanced screening for the movie, so I decided to check it out, obviously. And I really dug the movie. I thought the movie was well written, and even though the story itself may be specific, but there are like universal themes to it in
Yeah.
regards to loneliness and essentially trying to accustom to new environment or surroundings. And obviously the performances are fantastic. Like Saoirse Ronan, I thought she did a great job of her performance, and I felt as though she should have won the Oscar that year. I believe Brie Larson won for Room, if you remember
Oh,
that
really?
movie.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but Brie Larson did a great job with that movie. But I was kind of rooting for Saoirse, but
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah, and just rewatching it now, for me, it still holds up years later, and I say, yeah, it's worthwhile with this movie. Absolutely. So we could get into the highlights. So for me, what I liked is the themes, obviously, when in regards to isolation, from both not just like from outside territory, but also within the homeland as well too.
Yeah.
Because clearly Eilish, I hope I'm saying her name
I
right.
think you are. I think it should. It sounds right to me, so I think you should be good.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
that I'm an
okay.
expert or anything, so
Same here. Yeah, because so with Eilish, her character clearly is like she's fish out of water. Like once she arrives in Brooklyn, because clearly, like she's throughout the movie, she's nervous, like as she's trying to work her job in the department store, and when she's staying in the boarding house with the roommates. Clearly, she's nervous during the first dinner scene with that. So I just found like that dynamic to be quite interesting when it came to her arc and all that stuff. And in Ireland, like I felt as though at the beginning she felt stuck in a way when she was at the dance with her friend Nancy. I thought maybe at first she was probably going to miss her family and friends, but probably too she's going to like miss the country, and but in a way she knows that she has to move out to have a better life, and even though it's outside of familiarity, but in a way like she had to do what was right for her.
yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you there. It is at the end of the day like just trying to, I guess, find yourself because, like, while Ireland is also obviously a romanticized place, right? At
Yeah.
the beginning, you really see like there really is not much there for her. Like, she doesn't, for
Hmm.
her, sorry, she doesn't like have the job she wants, right? She doesn't have the life she wants. She's always kind of felt like an outsider, like you were saying. Like, she was almost like a fish out of water before she even came to Brooklyn. The only thing was that she was familiar with everything, right? So at least she knew
Yeah.
the people and whatnot, but it's not like she was living the life she wanted. So it was interesting to kind of see that contrast of isolation and outsider between where she grew up and then where she ends up in Brooklyn, right? But then also
Yeah.
she goes for all this new, like a new experience and a new change, and then it turns out like the Irish community is huge, so it's almost like she never left home in a way as well, because you're still dealing with similar kinds of drama and all that sort of stuff too. So I
Yeah.
yeah, like I agree. It's there are a lot of like universal things of sacrifice, right? Where it's just because something is comfortable doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you should stay in, right? And sometimes getting out of your comfort zone lets you become the best you that you can be. So that was kind of a good story, and it's obviously not easy, right? There's a lot of homesickness, and especially in the beginning, you see that where it's just, yeah, everything's so different. But in the end, I think she makes the right call doing what she does. I don't know if we're going right into it, or if it's or going all the way there, or if it's a spoiler free or whatever. But
Oh no, we're
yeah,
spoilers,
yeah, fair
spoilers for
enough.
sure.
But yeah, in that case, like, because she ends up choosing her new life over her old one, right? Despite all the kind of draws and temptations they start hurling her way,
Yeah.
which I think is the right call at the end of the day, because you made that sacrifice in the beginning for a reason. So it's good to kind of commit to it and then enjoy the life that you've chosen.
Yeah, I'm just glad that she ended up making the right call, because clearly, like, with her being from this small town, like, she obviously has to deal with this small town politics where, like, everybody knows your business, and then you'll have certain people try to take advantage of you and all that stuff. So I'm just glad that, even though, as you say, there might have been temptations here and there, but she had to do what was right at
Hmm.
the end.
Yeah, and it's good. You love to see it.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm glad that, like, she doesn't have to deal with Miss Kelly.
Um, which one was Miss Kelly the shopkeeper there?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my god. I was you could feel that woman's energy from across the ocean. That was something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I have more to talk about her, like, in the lowlights section, but
Yeah.
I'm just glad that with Eilish got away from that toxicity.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, agreed.
Another highlight I had is that I loved how, with Eilish, she's quite the wholesome character, because it's easy for someone that moves into, like, especially a big city, to get very tempted into both, like, the pros and cons of living in the big city. But I'm glad that she stuck to her morals, her values, because we see her, she volunteers to help the homeless during Christmas Eve, I believe. And she's able to maintain her part time job while taking night classes at college. So I'm just glad that she was able to maintain her sanity in
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree. I don't have too much to add to that beyond that, but it is good to kind of like I don't know the like original book that it's based off of, so I'm not sure what was kind of cut out or what else she kind of goes through in that. But yeah,
Hmm.
it is always good to see that, she doesn't end up being like while I do love the archetype of like a fallen angel, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
someone who used to be good, but the world kind of beats them down until they're the bad guy. It is good to kind of I agree. She just maintains her consistency and her character throughout the whole movie, which is very nice to see, and it's kind of refreshing in a good way. Sometimes you'll see characters are consistent, but they do questionable things, right? But with her,
Hmm.
it's very steady, which I thought was good.
Absolutely. Also, too, as a highlight, I had Eilish and Tony. They work as a couple. They're quite adorable. They have chemistry, and they're just fun to watch together as a couple.
I agree. Yeah, it's very like you said, they're very sweet to each other, and then it's there's like kind of, I guess, like a stigma with old timey relationships where you have, obviously patriarchal themes, right? And then you have people that aren't great that end up getting stuck together and everything. But
Hmm.
it was very refreshing to just like the whole time you're watching them, you can't really help but smile, except obviously in the sad sequences, right? But
Yeah.
most of the time, you can't help but smile because, like you said, it's very cute to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed, like, their meet cute when they first met at the dance,
Yeah,
when she is dancing with someone else and he's, like, watching from afar.
yeah,
So I
for
thought
sure.
that was cute. And one thing I noticed is that both of those characters, they wear emerald green. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, because with Eilish, she has the emerald green trench coat that she wears when she arrives in Brooklyn, and then with Tony, he wears that emerald green shirt when they first met at the dance. So I don't
Really?
know if
Yeah.
that, yeah, I don't know if that was coincidental, but that was
I'm
something that I
sure.
noticed
I'm
during
sure it was
rewatches.
intended for sure. I feel like they wouldn't leave that for coincidence, but that's I didn't even that completely went over my head, so I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, maybe it just shows that they were meant to be as a couple.
Yeah, you never know. They're connected in all sorts of ways.
Absolutely. Also, too, I enjoyed, like, from a technical aspect, I thought the production design and the costumes work, especially for a time period movie. As I mentioned, like, the use of the emerald green works. And I would say, like, with the Coney Island sequence, I liked her choice with the green swimsuit. So I
Yeah,
thought it worked for a period piece.
yeah, and I like I said, I'm a huge sucker for old timey New York. Like any time from basically early 1900s to even the 1980s, you just have this. New York City is just kind of it's been New York City, but you can see how it kind of changes with the times that it's in, and
Hmm.
it's always nice to see the. I'm not sure where it was filmed. I know nowadays if they're trying to go for old timey New York feels, they'll go to like Edinburgh and film in kind of more gothic cities like that. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm a huge sucker for it, so I love seeing New York in the olden days. Modern New York, not so much, but 80s and before that, it's always really nice to see.
Yeah. So apparently, for the Brooklyn scenes, they filmed that in Montreal.
Really,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, because apparently with this movie, it's a co-production between Canada, Ireland, and Britain.
Wow, I had no idea. That's good. I love Montreal, so that's that works. That makes sense to me. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah. But I would say, like, I was convinced that they were in 1950s Brooklyn. So
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Also too, I enjoyed Frankie, Tony's younger brother. I thought he was a delight to watch during the dinner scene with his commentary on Irish people.
Yeah, I don't remember too much of that part, but I do remember enjoying it too because he's just kind of like the bit of comedic relief. I guess you don't really get a lot of that throughout the movie. Like you'll get like
Yeah.
little one lines there here and there that are lighthearted, but he was
Hmm.
definitely like the clown in the movie, which was good. It was nice to see as a change of pace for a little bit there.
Yeah, because I wondered though while working on this movie if they decided to incorporate a bit more of his character because I imagine like his role was very small in the book and probably in the script because I believe yeah in the movie he has another scene when Tony asked him to help him write the letter to Eilish because that felt like added later like I don't think it
Yeah, maybe,
was
eh?
maybe but he
Never
was
know.
fun.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was for sure.
Absolutely. Also too, I enjoyed Eilish's roommates, Patty and Diana. I find they're quite sassy as
Oh,
roommates.
like the mean girls there, eh?
Yeah.
Mean-ish, I guess. They're not
Yeah.
full-on mean girls, but yeah. No, it's good. I
Hmm.
like that whole kind of house dynamic with oh, I forgot her name, Molly Weasley, the lady who plays Molly
Hmm.
Weasley. But I like that. It's kind of like that traditional. Well, they're not British, but you have that kind of stern mother figure
Yeah.
that's there, and you always kind of seem to see them more in UK type productions and just I guess that kind of side of the world there. But
Hmm.
it was nice to see her kind of in that role, but still be having like a gentle heart, especially when it came to Eilish, right? Giving her the basement room, which has its own entrance, and
Yeah.
showing that trust in her. It was yeah, it was nice. I like the dynamic of the house there too. It was really cool.
Absolutely. I do want to say, like, when Patty, Diana, when they tried to rate Eilish's skills with the spaghetti, was quite funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's also like funny that they were even trying to teach her how to eat spaghetti because, like, to us, it's like everybody like learns that really early on, right? But
Yeah.
in that situation, if you're just not exposed to it, you're not. And it was really cute to kind of see that too, where they're like immediately dinging her for everything she's done wrong.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, is it normal for people to use a spoon that way while scooping up the spaghetti? Because I've never seen that before myself. So,
When I was a kid, we would always just do the fork. But if you were going to a restaurant, that's what you would have
hmm
to do. Is you would have to use the spoon and the spaghetti. But I either do something wrong or I'm not sure how I got so turned off of it, but it makes a scraping noise because you're doing the metal twirling of the fork on the spoon, and I'm like, I can't
hmm
stand that. I don't like the metal on metal scraping. Right? It just it makes me wince and cringe, and I hate it so much. So that's why I avoid it. But I have definitely seen that. It's not the first time I've seen people using the spoon to kind of stabilize the twirl. It's very interesting.
Yeah, because I had spaghetti the other night, and I felt as though like maybe I should have used that technique because
Try it out.
I did splash a few times. And it wasn't like a big splash,
Yeah,
but just it was a tiny splash. But
yeah, yeah. Well, next time you'll have to try it out.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely keep that in mind for next time. In regards to scenes, I really enjoyed that sequence when Eilish reads Rose's letter for days, where it's set up like as a montage, because clearly she gets very emotional at the point as she's trying to get used to her new surroundings. So it was quite sad where like for days she kept reading the letter and like crying until Father Flood arrives to enroll her into the night classes.
Yeah.
So
No, I agreed. Yeah, I didn't even think about that one too much because from what I recall, she even kind of puts off reading it at the beginning too, right? Because
yeah.
I think the letter gets there and then she gets it, but then she tucks it away in a drawer until I guess she
hmm
really needs it. But after she opens it, it's almost like she suppressed it too much and, like you're saying, spent weeks on end kind of emotional about it and missing home a lot more.
hmm Absolutely. Also too, I really enjoyed when Eilish is volunteering at the homeless shelter. One of the people, Frankie, I believe that's his name, he sings a song in, I believe it's an Irish dialect, and everyone there like is very moved with his performance. So it sounded hopeful with that moment.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
Even though like I did not understand at all what he was saying,
Yeah.
but in a way you just felt it at that
Yeah.
moment. I think that's all that I had for highlights. If there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, honestly, I think like I was kind of saying at the beginning too, where it's like I don't have too much to really like comment on on it because I didn't
hmm
really like there wasn't anything I really disliked about the movie. You know what I mean? It's a pretty kind of straightforward story, and then it's told really well, and then you're just kind of immersed in it the whole time. It's nothing. Obviously, in my opinion, it's nothing like a grand kind of, obviously not an action or superhero film or anything like that, but
hmm
you're just kind of engaged the whole time, and it's a very simple story, which I think is kind of the best highlight about it too, is that it's really about just missing home, but also wanting to do more and for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's just it was a great movie.
Absolutely. So let's get into the lowlights. So I don't have a lot to add for this section. I do want to mention that when Eilish, I believe when she goes back to Ireland after her sister's death, she decides not to read Tony's letters because she has like a bunch of them inside the drawer. So I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, it was weird because especially because like they get married like right before she leaves too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
and again it's like it's not like it's inconsistent with the character because you saw her do the same thing with Rose's letter where she kind
Mm-hmm.
of set it aside even though this is someone she really does love. But
Yeah.
I did find that a bit odd too because it's like you guys just got married, like just before you cross the ocean. And then she's putting it away. And then also on top of that, to add to that, there's the whole romance with Domhnall Gleeson's character there, right? So all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you're just like, okay, well, the hell is going on? And on top of that, she doesn't even tell people that she's married for a little bit, if I recall correctly, right? Because I
Yeah.
think it's
Mm-hmm.
her mom she tells first, or somebody, or maybe it's the I think the shopkeeper lady knows about
It
it.
was, yeah, Miss Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, friggin' Miss Kelly. But yeah, no, I found it odd. It is consistent with the character in my opinion, but it was a
Mm-hmm.
bit strange where like especially to see I guess like you were saying the quantity of letters that you see in there. Where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well what's kind of going on here?
Yeah, because I did not read the book, but apparently in the book, she has an affair with the character Jim,
No.
which is why she doesn't open the letters apparently. But in this movie, they make them to be more, I would say, platonic than a couple. Well, I would say like that relationship was more one sided in regards to the romance, but I just
Yeah,
fact it did not make sense with how they approached that, in my opinion.
yeah, well, I'm happy they didn't. If that is the case when it comes to the book, like I hope
Hmm.
they. I'm happy that they didn't do that because I think that would have been kind of a
Yeah.
complete 180 of the actual character then because
Oh
then you're like,
yeah.
oh, she actually doesn't care about her normal values. She's just gonna get caught up in
Hmm.
this romance in a place that she didn't really want to be in, right? And then
Yeah.
on top of that, a lot of the folks around her. It was weird because I noticed as I was watching it, a lot of the folks back home in Ireland, they're all about kind of, in my opinion, kind of keeping her in like a bit of a static state, right? Where it's like now you can take your sister's old job, right? So for you to get a
Hmm.
job you wanted, your sister had to die. So here you go, you can get it now. And then on top of that, it's like, oh yeah, you can marry this guy because he has a big country house and his family's leaving, so you can take care of the house and you guys can have kids and enjoy your life. And it's like, what? What? Why would she do that when she's in Brooklyn, like married? She's getting school stuff done. She's the job could be a bit better, right? But at the
Yeah.
beginning, but it's really weird how like they're all before she leaves, they don't really care too much about her. Then she
Hmm.
leaves, and then when she comes back, they still don't really care that much, but they're all about just keeping her kind of I guess docile, but still at home. And I'm like, what the? It's so
Yeah.
like Ireland in general in that movie just seems kind of toxic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. But I figure for me, like, I think she hid the marriage because I imagine because that town maybe has a lot of traditions, and probably I imagine they would want her to tell like the family first before actually marrying the person. But since she did not do
Yeah.
that, maybe that's why she kept it hidden.
No, fair enough. Like I could see that for sure. Yeah. I just
Hmm.
was yeah, a bit surprised where I'm like, well, like it looks like there are moments where she's going to tell them and then she just chooses to say nothing and then as Domhnall Gleeson keeps getting more and more into it, we see her like almost kind of entertaining that idea a bit more, but it's not like she's not fully convinced, right? But I'm like, what
Yeah.
are we doing right now? You have Tony, the sweetheart, waiting for you back at home. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely. So another low light I had, like, we need to talk about Miss Kelly. Like, what is Miss Kelly's deal, honestly, throughout this movie?
I think she's just from a small town in Ireland, and it really has nothing better to do than just be kind of a witch of the
Yeah.
town, and just be cruel and rude. She's just not a nice person.
Yeah, I feel like she's just mean for the sake of being mean.
Yeah. Because
I felt sorry for that coworker that worked at the store, because when the time when she gets Eilish to bring her to the store, like she looks depressed. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if I thought maybe I had missed something, but like they didn't really give any insights into her character, as to why she might be rude or anything like that. Like if she had lost
right.
someone, or I don't know, maybe she was. It would have been cool if they did something where, like, even something rewarding, where if it was like, like she had been in a similar situation to Eilish, where she had went to America, but then decided to come back and chose to stay, which is why she ended up the way she is, right? Which I thought like
Yeah.
that could have been a good like teaching moment, right? But they didn't really do that, and I could have missed something, but I don't recall them really giving any insight into her and why she is the way she is. Like you said, she's just kind of mean for the sake of being mean, and I'm like, damn, like you're just a jerk, like.
Yeah, because unless if that's flushed out in the book, I think she's just meant to play that stereotype.
Okay. Yeah. That's a bit disappointing because it would have been really cool if it was like she was in the same shoes as like or the same path as Eilish, but she just ended up taking the alternative. So then that would have been neat for Eilish to be like, oh, you know what? Even though it is comfortable here, I got to choose the
Hmm.
other way because otherwise I'll become like friggin' Miss Kelly.
Yeah, and I didn't get her blackmailing Eilish like for marrying Tony.
Yeah, that was yeah, like I didn't understand what the goal was really. Like I think maybe she was just threatening to like ruin her family name kind of thing, I guess. But
Yeah.
it was a bit random.
Yeah, or maybe she wanted Eilish to stay in town and in ways trying to control her life, perhaps. I don't know. But
Yeah. We got to ask the author and director there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Another low light I had is that when Jim reads the letter from Eilish at the door, I don't know if it was because of the lighting, but it looked like there was debris coming from the ceiling. So I don't know
Oh,
if
really?
yeah, I don't know if that just happened or if that was a stylistic choice, but that just felt off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, like I didn't notice it, but now that you're mentioning it, my interpretation might be that they he really was banking on someone to come here and I guess take care of the house, but create make the house a home, I guess. And
Yeah,
with that last little sprinkle of debris, I guess it was just his dreams fading away there. You never know. It's just a bit poetic, really.
yeah. I would say more than sprinkles, but yeah, sure.
Fair enough.
And a final note I had is that I watched a trailer of this movie, and apparently the trailer just essentially recapped the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up here. I won't watch it right now, but I'll have it ready to go for later.
but uh, but yeah, they could have done a better job with editing the trailer. But I guess that happens with these types of movies. But
Yeah, maybe. And again, like I think there's like not like it's a movie where stuff happens, but not like anything grand, right? Not a lot of grand stuff happens. So
hmm,
yeah, they I guess should have been a bit more careful, but that kind of is a bit unfortunate if you're getting the whole movie in the trailer.
absolutely. So, is there anything else you wanted to add for this section?
No, like the lowlights really the only really big one was the kind of entertaining of that relationship with Domhnall Gleeson, especially after the marriage, which I
Hmm.
was like, this is kind of odd, but like, throughout the whole thing, she's kind of guarded and a bit distant, and she kind of on occasion lets her guard down, but then she ends up
Hmm.
making the right choice, which I was like, nope, that's the way to go. That's perfect.
Absolutely. So let's get into the trivia. So there was a lot of fun facts about this movie that I found. I'm not going to share everything for the sake of time, but here's a few that I will share. So the producer of the movie, Fiona Dwyer, she acquired the rights for the book when she met the author, Colm Toibin, at a rare book fair. and apparently they immediately hit it off, and apparently she asked him right away whether he'd consider her optioning the book. And apparently, despite at the time other parties wanted to pursue the rights of the book, he eventually gave Dwyer his blessing.
Wow.
So there you have
That's
it.
cool.
So this one is like a casting note. So apparently Rooney Mara was originally cast in a lead role, but
Really?
yeah, but eventually she backed out when production of the movie stalled. And but apparently Saoirse Ronan was in the running, but at the time she was too young. But then, as the years went by, eventually Saoirse Ronan was age appropriate enough to take this part.
Wow. I'm glad that worked out. Nothing against Rooney Mara or anything like that, but I think Saoirse was a good fit for the role.
Absolutely. Also, too, so the director John Crowley apparently divided this movie into three different visual movements. The first movement is before Eilish leaves post war Ireland and is with tight frames and filled with green tones. The color scheme was created by photographic reference of the time. The second movement begins when Eilish leaves for Brooklyn, and the first proper wide shot is featured while the colors become more playful as a nod to how America in 1952 was on the cusp of pop culture kicking off. And then the third movement is back in Ireland. There's more brighter, glamorous, and subtly more colorful than the first movement. The director apparently wanted to showcase how Eilish has changed and looks very different, where he says, quote, there is a slightly dreamy quality to that last third.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because I wouldn't say this movie has a lot of, I would say, visuals in regards to flashy cinematography and all that stuff, but I would say that's worth to note with what
No,
he
for
was trying
sure.
to go for. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the more you think about it, I guess yeah, you can definitely see the influences and the changes of the color as the movie goes through those three parts or movements, like he's saying.
Absolutely. So apparently, back in September 2024, it was announced that Saoirse Ronan will narrate a new audiobook edition of the novel. She says, quote, I had the honor of playing Eilish in the film adaptation of Colm Toibin's book, Brooklyn, and now I'm recording the audiobook for Picador. I couldn't be more privileged to bring this beautiful book to life. It's something that is so personal to me and it will always have a special place in my heart.
Very cool. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah. And then a final fun fact I have here is that apparently for the book, there is a sequel called Long Island, which was published back in 2024 and was selected for Oprah's book club.
2024, like this year?
Yeah. Well,
Re
the episode will come out in 2025. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Very interesting. That's
So,
cool.
apparent. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna ask, is it a continuation of the story? Because I think that's where Tony had bought that land, right? It was on Long Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently, so with the book is set 20 years later in the 70s, where they're living in Long Island, they're married and they have two kids. So
Wow.
apparently, a stranger approaches Eilish to reveal that apparently Tony had an affair with his wife, who is pregnant, and that when the baby is born, essentially wants to give the baby to them to raise. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Damn, what the hell
interesting.
happened to Tony? I don't like that. He was so cool. What happened?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like this sounds interesting as a sequel. So, and since this movie did well financially, I figured, why not do a film adaptation of this book?
Yeah, seriously.
So, lastly, I mean, this is the most important question. Should this movie be rediscovered? So, what do you think, Akin?
I think yes, but with an asterisk there, where it's like It's definitely not something that I think you can put in your rotation like consistently, but I think every couple of years, if you're looking for just a good romantic film that is romantic in kind of so many ways, right? When it comes to locations, when it comes to story, when it comes to that kind of um, like will she, won't she, right? It is great, but I don't think it's something that you can consistently watch just because of how like the story is nice, but there isn't, I think, a lot of substance over multiple watches where you're just going to kind of you already know what's kind of going to happen, right? So yes, it should be rediscovered, but there's a time and place for it, and it's not one of those movies that you can always watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say for me, absolutely yes. Like this movie should be rediscovered. I say it's a beautiful film tackling themes of isolation and home sickness. The performances are solid. I mean, yeah, it's one of those movies where like you'll have to be in a certain mood to
For
watch
sure.
it. Yeah. But I say, yeah, it's worthwhile. And I don't know if this movie is better than the book or if it's on par, but I say on its own, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd like to learn more about the book because I didn't even realize that it was an adaptation like that. And
Hmm.
yeah, now I'm really kind of curious about the second one too, just to see how that's gonna go.
Yeah, I imagine it's very spicy just based off that
Yeah,
synopsis.
seriously, right?
Yeah. So that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast. So, again, you want to share where people can find you, or and if you have any upcoming projects?
Yeah, I'll have a couple of episodes dropping on a podcast I do with my brother of some short stories. It's called Part Time Thrills. You can catch us on Instagram and all major podcasting platforms. And yeah, that would be kind of the main project there. So yeah, thank you very much for having me as always. And it's always fun chatting about movies.
Absolutely. So for me, you can find me on Instagram, X, YouTube, and Linktree at Nomfanelo. You can find the podcast on Instagram, X, YouTube, and Linktree at RD Movies Pod. If you want to support the podcast, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/RD Movies Pod to donate. On Spotify, you can answer the feature poll, leave a comment, and rate the podcast. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review and rate the podcast. And you could submit questions, comments, and suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com, to be featured on the after show, which will air after the season finale. So I want to say thank you again for being a guest for this episode of the podcast. Do you have any final notes you want to share?
Thank you for having me. And to everyone out there, always choose freedom over familiarity because familiarity will make you end up like Miss Kelly. So do what you want to do and be who you want to be, I guess, in light of the movie.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you to you for listening or watching this episode of the podcast. And I'll catch you on the next one.